Welcome back, everyone. The Republican presidential race taking another turn. And this time, it's Newt Gingrich coming around the bend. A new poll shows him with 22% of the vote to Governor Mitt Romney's 24%, a statistical tie. Joining me now, presidential candidate Newt Gingrich. Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker.
Gretchen, it's good to be with you.
What do you make of these polls?
Well, I think the voters are very concerned, the American people are very concerned about the economy, about a $2 trillion deficit, about a Washington that doesn't seem to work, where it's all bickering and partisanship. So I think they're looking for somebody who makes sense and who offers them an optimistic sense that we can get America to work again. And I think week after week in the debates, because I've focused so much on substance and on positive solutions, I think we've been steadily gaining ground. In the last week or so, it seems to have increased dramatically the number of people who are interested in having, the kind of positive solution-oriented campaign and the future with, if you go to newt.org, you see an entire 21st century contract with America that outlines how we could get America back on track and how we could get back to creating jobs, could shrink Governor Washington, right, and could control the deficit and move back towards a balanced budget.
It's interesting, though, because you were so much of the talk on the Sunday talk shows as well, and I think that the media has something to do with that, too. I want to take a look at two other polls. National primary poll of likely GOP voters. You're on top. 28%, Herman Cain 25%, Mitt Romney has dropped to 18%. And then let's go to Iowa, because that's where the first caucus is going to be held. And it's a statistical tie between how they view the top four, Cain, Paul, Romney, and yourself. Now, undoubtedly, Mr. Gingrich, you have gone up in the polls, do you believe, because of Herman Cain and some of the troubles that he has faced as being the other conservative or one of the other conservatives in this race?
Well, I think you've had a series of people, started with Tim Pawlenty and then Michelle Bachmann and then Rick Perry, then Herman Cain. I mean, there have been a series of people who sort of auditioned for being the conservative alternative to Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney's been very stable and very steady. And now we're in a situation where, to some extent, people are looking at Newt Gingrich and having to decide, do they like the solutions I'm offering? Do they like my own track record as Speaker with welfare reform, balanced budget, first tax cuts in 16 years, bringing unemployment down to 4.2%? Is that a record they'd like to see repeated in Washington?
Right.
And I think, to some extent, that's given me a real advantage over my friends who are also running.
I think one of the things the American people like about you, too, sir, if I can go out on a limb, is that they don't necessarily like a career politician, but maybe what they like about you as a career politician is that you tell it like it is. And that seems to be what they like about people who aren't politicians. Your comments.
Well, I may have the best of both worlds, because while I served in Congress and was Speaker of the House, I did take the last 12 years off to run 4 small businesses, write books, and make speeches. And so they can look at that and say, he understands the private sector. I specialized in healthcare and national security. Those are both huge issues for the country. And I think that allows me to combine experience with an outsider's viewpoint that allows me to approach things like Washington, probably very, very different from most traditional politicians, but at the same time with a lot more knowledge than somebody who's never served in Washington.
Right. One of the things that happens, though, to people when they rise in the polls is that you become, it's almost like a target comes on your back, and it's already starting for you. So apparently there have been these flyers that are going under hotel room doors in Iowa talking about your failed marriages. How are you going to tackle now these attacks? Are you just going to do one big interview and say, here's all what I'm going to say about it? Or what are you going to do?
No, look, I've done this very consistently now for 6 or 7 months. I'm very open. First of all, it's a matter of public record. I'm very open about the fact that I've had moments in my life that I regret. I've indicated that I've had to go to God and ask for forgiveness and to seek reconciliation. As you know, because we've both been on your show, I have a very close marriage with Callista. We do many, many things together. I'm very close to my 2 daughters, Kathy and Jackie. Jackie, by the way, is having a birthday today, so happy birthday, Jackie. And we're very close. I'm very close to my 2 grandchildren, Maggie and Robert, to my 2 son-in-laws, Paul and Jimmy. And anybody who looks at me as a 68-year-old grandfather and says to themselves, all right, Has he grown wiser? Has he learned from his experiences? Is he somebody I would trust to lead the American people? They've got to run to their own judgment about that. All this stuff will come up, and that's part of the process. But I think people will also look at the totality of my life, and then they've got to make a decision themselves. I'm very comfortable relying on the American people to have a sense of decency and to have a sense of understanding of human beings.
All right. Well, they ask a lot of politicians, but maybe they have never asked you to break dance. Brian's going to have to break dance coming up. You might want to stay tuned for that, Mr. Speaker. I know you have a tight schedule.
There may be limits to my commitment here.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us early on Fox and Friends.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Great to be with you.
Coming up.